Well, hello there, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and this beautiful beast sat alongside me is Samsung's fresh new Galaxy Book 4 Edge laptop. One of the first UK notebooks packing Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Elite, with all of Microsoft's Copilot Plus bollockry, as well as a stunning AMOLED screen and nipple flicking arousing performance. The Galaxy Book 4 Edge will cost you from £1,399 British pounds if you want the 14-inch model. This here 16-inch will cost you at least 100 extra quid, unless you want the top spec model, which is even more. And this right here is that top spec model with a special custom version of the Snapdragon X Elite stuffed inside, and so far I like very much. So here's a full tour of the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, the 14-inch model of Samsung's latest laptop weighs just 1.16 kilos, but this here 16-incher weighs in at just over 1.5. So why? Definitely not one of the most portable new laptops of 2024 thus far. And to be fair, Samsung's done a pretty good job of cramming that screen in with minimal bezels surrounding it, but no getting around the fact that the Galaxy Book 4 Edge is a proper big mama. Only just fits inside of my backpack, and my backpack is bloody massive. And no surprises at all with the design. It's sleek and smart like every other Galaxy Book I've ever fondled, both inside and out. Not much in the way of flair or anything. It's a plain silver chassis, but certainly solidly constructed in every area. Got a proper solid lid. Hinge feels pretty durable as well. No part of it certainly feels fragile. And the Galaxy Book 4 Edge comes in this one colour, which is apparently sapphire blue. Don't know if it's just my eyes going dodgy from decades of internet abuse, but it looks more silvery to me. Maybe if I squint really, really hard. And actually, no, it's just kind of turning red now. Ugh, too hard. And Samsung has slapped the same selection of ports on here as the previous generation. So over here on the left edge, you've got dual Thunderbolt ports side by side, and also a wee bit of HDMI 2.1. And this 16-inch model also adds in a full-size USB Type-A port. You've also got a microSD memory card slot. Now, booting this wee bugger up is both swift and simple. All you got to do is slap your finger down on the fingerprint sensor in the corner there. As you can see, you're straight in. If you're in a bit of a rush, you can basically go from shut to ready to rock in about a second and a half. And both Samsung and Qualcomm are pretty tough when it comes to security, so all your biometrics and other sensitive data are stored on a secure chip. So if you happen to lose your laptop, some git nicks it, well, it'll be really hard to crack into. And that 16-inch AMOLED screen is an absolute stunner as well. You've got the same 3K resolution, 2880 by 1800 pixels, whether you go for the 14-incher or the 16-inch Galaxy Book 4 Edge. So those visuals nice and crisp, even with this more spacious panel. Got full HDR support, including upscaling for SDR content. And the screen isn't quite as squat as with the Asus Vivobook S15, which I also recently reviewed. So you do get a bit more letterboxing when you're kicking back with some cinematic fare, but it is better suited to general creative tasks. You've certainly got plenty of space on this 16-inch model for running apps side by side. As usual with Samsung panels, reasonably poppy as well, although not to the point where everything looks bizarrely vivid. Now, on the default colour settings, the Samsung AMOLED profile, this screen covers 99% of the sRGB gamut, although only 74% of the Adobe and P3. You can of course calibrate the colour output if you need to. And the screen is rather reflective, but thankfully the brightness levels scale up high enough so you can comfortably use it outdoors as long as the sunlight isn't directly striking the surface. And that refresh rate maxes out at 120 Hz, so good news for all your supported apps. They'll look silky smooth. And the screen is touch responsive as well, nice and sensitive, so easy to use if you don't fancy getting involved with that absolutely enormous trackpad. As for the audio, well, it's the same story here as other Samsung laptops like the Galaxy Book 4 Pro. You've got a quad AKG speaker setup. Got dual 4-watt woofers on the regular 14-incher, but those are upgraded here on the 16-inch model to 5-watt woofers. And that audio is pretty bloody loud when you max it out. It's not quite loud enough to vibrate your insides like an angry bear violently making love to your soul, but it'll certainly do the job if you're just trying to kick back with some Netflix in a noisy kitchen or generally quite raucous household. Got Dolby Atmos surround sound support. A bit more bass would have been nice, but at least when you max it out, it isn't tinny, there's no distortion or anything. Now, that camera up top is your basic 2 megapixel full HD webcam. As you can see there, you've got a convenient little LED that flashes on when that camera is in play. Now this is absolutely fine, does a job for, your basic bit of Zoom and Skype and chatting with the team on a Monday morning, all of that. Good times. It can deal reasonably well with a strong bit of backlighting, but best avoided if possible. And you've also got a dual mic setup right here in the Galaxy Book 4 Edge. This does a pretty good job of picking up your voice even if you're moving around a fair distance from the laptop. And then there's that keyboard, which is an absolute beast here on the 16-incher, complete with a dedicated numeric pad, which of course you don't get on the more compact 14-incher. I gotta say, I get on pretty well with this board, although it's not quite perfect. The travel is just about good enough so you get a decent bit of feedback when you are touch typing. It's fairly firm, certainly not too spongy. The keys are well sized and spaced, except that there's no separation of that numeric pad with the rest of the board, so quite often when I go to strike the enter key or the backspace key, I end up smashing one of these instead. But hey, at least it's a double row enter key and those cursor keys aren't too smushed up. And of course, as is seemingly mandatory on these laptops, you've got your dedicated Copilot key. And of course, Copilot does all your usual generative AI bullshittery. And it's clearly incredibly bloody humble. And all the other usual AI chicanery, including of course the Windows Studio effects when you're using that camera, so you can get some background effects on the go, a bit of blur in action. You can get a creative filter on the go, so you can turn yourself into a watercolor or a cartoon. And this I quite like because it smooths over those rough edges from being a 40-year-old alcoholic. You can also quickly and easily edit your pics on the Galaxy Book 4 Edge with the help of that AI shenanigans. So I could live out all my nerdy fantasies as an anime character, for instance. At least I could if that AI wasn't occasionally about as clever as Siri after sniffing a whole bottle of glue. Here's cyberpunk Uncle Spurt, with only a wee bit of chair coming out of his head. And using Samsung's multi-control app, you can quickly and easily pair up with your Galaxy Blower if you've got an S24 or whatever else. So you can quickly and easily share your apps, share your files, all that good stuff. But now onto the tasty subject of performance, an area where Qualcomm reckons the Snapdragon X Elite squats and unleashes hot fury all over the Apple M3 and other close rivals. And of course, just to confuse matters, there are various different models of the Snapdragon X Elite. So the Galaxy Book 4 Edge 14-inch and the 16-inch model both come with the X1E 8100 as standard. But if you go for the 16-inch model, you can also upgrade to a special 12-core custom exclusive version of the Snapdragon X Elite, the 84100. And that's the version that I've been testing out right here. And no matter your choice of chipset or size of laptop, you've got 16 gigs of RAM bunged in there. And so I merrily bunged the Galaxy Book 4 Edge into performance mode and got down to a good bit of benchmarking, because I know some people really like benchmarking and they'd throw an absolute fit in the comments if I don't do it. And it was good news all around. The likes of Geekbench, for instance, churned out scores of 2,815 for single core, 15,452 multi-core, and that absolutely smashed the scores that the Galaxy Book 4 Pro pumped out with its x86 Intel chipset, and it also beat the scores spaffed out by the Asus Vivobook S15, another Snapdragon X Elite laptop which I reviewed earlier this week. And this trend continued in 3D mark as well. I ran the Wildlife Extreme benchmarking bonanza, and this laptop pumped out a score of 6,985, which comfortably beat the Vivobook score of 6,315. And likewise, the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme stress test was absolutely mullered with a 99.6% pass score. And during that stress test and other moments of intense activity, the built-in coolant fans didn't get too loud at all. They're clearly audible in a quiet room, but otherwise, if you're playing a game or something like that, just having the volume on sort of medium levels easily drowns them out. And as the Snapdragon X Elite is an ARM-based chipset, all of your regular x86 Windows apps will have to run in emulation if they run at all. Thankfully, DaVinci Resolve 19 Beta 3 has built-in support for Snapdragon X Elite. And this ran beautifully and actually rendered a 4K video just over 10 minutes in length, and a total time just over 4 minutes. Nice and nippy, and certainly a massive improvement over a lot of x86 laptops that I've recently reviewed. Unfortunately, I have struggled to find any Steam games that do run on the Galaxy Book 4 Edge and other Snapdragon X Elite laptops because of the whole emulation issue. But Spider-Man Remastered kind of plays ball. It actually ran really well on the medium to high graphics settings here on the Galaxy Book 4 Edge. There were pretty much no judders at all to speak of. It certainly seems smoother here than on Asus's Vivobook S15, that's further backing up the benchmarking. I was really enjoying it until a segment in a museum where Mary Jane's head suddenly appeared to explode into a million tiny angry wasps. This must just be a glitch in the emulation because I also saw the same problem on the Vivobook. And Tell Me Why also ran absolutely fine, not the smoothest frame rate but not too juddery either. And once you get more and more titles actually supporting that Snapdragon X Elite, certainly it seems very promising performance indeed. And as for the battery, well, you've got a 61.8 watt hour cell stuffed inside of that gigantic 16-inch chassis. And it supposedly delivers up to 22 hours of use, although I'm assuming that's basically just looping a downloaded video with the screen brightness scaled down, the audio switched off and bugger all happening in the background. I don't trust battery benchmarks too much, so I found that with my real world usage, that's having a few apps open at the same time, working in Chrome while streaming Spotify, etc. I typically got just over 8 hours of play with a full charge before it needed recharging using the 65 watt charger that Samsung has hoid in the box. That's pretty bloody good compared with a lot of Intel laptops, and certainly enough to keep you going all day long, as long as you're not absolutely caning this thing. Oh, and you've also got 512 gigs of storage as standard here on the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge. You can upgrade that to 1 terabyte if you like, and as I mentioned before, microSD memory card support here on the 16-incher. And there you have it, my lovely. That in a delicious wee nutshell is the fresh new Galaxy Book 4 Edge Snapdragon X Elite. Yours from 1,400 quid basically. And that X Elite, certainly impressive stuff, especially if you're a creator, you're doing some pretty hardcore photo editing, a bit of 4K video editing, it can handle it all, no worries. As I say, gaming, a little bit hit and miss at the moment with the emulation side of things, but the performance is certainly there. And that's why I recommend the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Edge. It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a ruddy wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!